Chapter 51. A young woman tricks a man into losing his money. A hero undergoes torture willingly. When the fourth Mr. Fing had arranged for Wan to become an authentic secretary of the patent office, he packed up his luggage and set out with the three runners to escort Wan to Tai Chow for his trial. Since it was the beginning of the fourth month and the weather was warm, all five of them were wearing unlined clothes. Leaving Nanking by the west gate, they searched for a long time for a boat to Cheking, but they could not find a single boat to Hangzhou and had to board one bound for Suzhou instead. At Suzhou, Fing paid the fare, and they changed for a junk to Hangzhou, which was half as large again as the Nanking boat. "We don't need such a large junk," said Fing. "We'll simply take 2 cabins." He paid 1 tael and 8 cents at the dock to reserve the middle and back cabins. Then the 5 of them went aboard, and after a whole day's wait, the boatman found a buyer of raw silk to take the front cabin. He was a handsome young fellow in his 20s, with only 1 load of baggage, but that was very heavy. That evening, the boatman cast off. They punted over a mile to a little village. "Make fast the hawser and lower the second anchor," ordered the helmsman. "See to the passengers while I go home and have a look around." "So you're going to ask for a fair wind," chuckled the Tai Chow runners. The helmsman grinned and left. Wan and Fing went ashore to stretch their legs and watched the evening mist scatter as the moon cast its bright reflection in the water. After strolling for a time, they went back to the boat to turn in. They heard the creak of oars as a sampan rowed upstream to moor beside their junk. The boatmen were sleeping with their quilts wrapped around them, while the runners had lit a lamp and were playing cards. Only Fan, Fing, and the young silk buyer were in their cabins, and they opened the windows to enjoy the moon. The sampan drew alongside, punted by a thin man in his 40s who was standing in the bow. A young woman of 18 or 19 was staring from the stern, but when she saw the 3 men on the junk watching the moon, she hid herself in the back cabin. Presently Fing and Wan went to sleep, leaving only the silk buyer up. Before sunrise the next day, the helmsman returned with a bundle on his back, and immediately they cast off. They traveled about 10 miles before breakfast. At noon, Fing was sitting idly in the cabin talking to Wan. "I don't suppose you'll come to serious harm, sir, in this lawsuit," he said. "Still, a charge brought by the governor is always troublesome. I suggest that when you're questioned, no matter what you're accused of, you say it was done by a guest of yours named Feng Ming Chi. I know what to do when I'm sent for." Just then, the silk buyer came in from the front cabin. His eyes were red with weeping. "What's the matter?" asked Feng and the rest. The young man did not answer. Suddenly it dawned on Feng, who pointed at him. "I know," he cried. "You're young and green, so you fell into a trap." Tears poured down the shamefaced buyer's cheeks. Feng questioned him closely and learned that the night before, when everyone else was sleeping, he had leaned out of the cabin to watch the girl in the sampan. When she saw the 2 others had left, she came out of the cabin and smiled at him. The 2 vessels were lying alongside, and although in different boats they were very close, so the young man petted her till she smiled and climbed into his cabin, and they had a night of love. Once the buyer was asleep, the woman stole 4 packages of silver worth 200 taels from his baggage. When the junk cast off at dawn, the young man was still half asleep. He had only just realized that his bag had been opened and he had been robbed. Now, like a dumb man dreaming of his mother, he could not express his despair. Fing thought for a moment, then asked the boatman, Would you know that sampan again? "We'd know it, but that's no proof in a court of law. We can't bring a charge against them. What's to be done?" As long as you know it, that's all right, said Feng. "Since they robbed us yesterday, they must have taken the opposite direction. Unfurl the sail and fit up your oars to row back. When you see the boat, we'll moor some distance off. If we recover the money, you'll be rewarded." The boatmen rowed back. Not till dusk did they reach the village where they had stopped the night before, but the sampan had disappeared. "Row on," said Feng. They rowed for nearly another mile, then sighted the sampan moored beneath an old willow. There seemed to be no one aboard. Feng told the boatman to anchor a little closer, under another willow, then asked them to lie down and not make a sound while he himself went ashore. He walked up to the sampan and was indeed the same, and it was indeed the same. The woman was talking with the thin man in the cabin. Fing strolled up and down for a while, and by the time he went back to the junk, the sampan had moored itself beside it, and the thin man had vanished. The moon was brighter than on the previous night. It lit up the girl who was combing her hair, and showed she was dressed in a white cotton jacket and black silk skirt. She was all alone in the cabin, enjoying the moon. "There's no one about," called Fing softly. "Aren't you afraid, little girl, all alone on that boat?" "What business is it of yours? I'm used to being alone on board. What's there to be afraid of?" She threw him a sidelong glance. Fing jumped aboard and took her in his arms. Though she made a show of resisting, she kept quiet. He picked her up and set her on his right knee. She did not budge, but cuddled up to his chest. "There's no one on your boat. Won't you keep me company for one night?" asked Fing. "Our meeting was predestined." "We boat people are a respectable lot," said the girl. "But there's nobody here tonight, and there's nothing I can do now that you've come along. Stay here, though. I don't want to go to your junk. I have money in my baggage. I don't like to leave it." He picked her gently up and carried her over. All those on the junk seemed to be fast asleep, but one lamp was lit in the middle cabin, and there was a single quilt there. As soon as Fing set her down, the girl took off her clothes and snuggled inside the quilt. To her surprise, Fing did not undress, but she heard the sound of oars. When she tried to raise her head, he knelt her down with one knee so that she could not budge. He held her down with one knee so that she could not budge. By listening closely, though, she could tell the boat was moving. "Why is the boat cast off?" she asked frantically. "Let them do what they like with the boat, while we have a good time." "Let me go," she grew more desperate. "Little fool, you trick men out of their money. I trick them out of their wives. Since you're a cheat yourself, why get so upset?" Then the girl knew she was trapped. "Let me go," she begged. "I'll return you whatever I took." "I can only let you go when the silver is brought back, but I promise not to make trouble." By the time he let her up, even her trousers had disappeared, and when Wan and the buyer came in from the other cabin, they could not help laughing to see her in such a state. Fing found out where she lived and her husband's name, then asked the boatman to wait in some quiet place. As soon as it was light, he told the buyer to wrap up every stitch of the young woman's clothing and walk several miles back to find her husband. This rascal, having discovered his boat gone and his wife missing, was standing anxiously beneath the willow. The buyer recognized and accosted him. "You've lost the campaign and your wife into the bargain." The young man clapped his shoulder. "Even so, you should count yourself lucky." He opened the bundle and took out the girl's clothes, trousers, underwear, and shoes. Then the husband knelt down in desperation and kowtowed as fast as a knife chops onions. "I'm not going to arrest you," said the buyer. "Hurry up and return me the 4 packages of silver you stole from me yesterday. Then I'll give you back your wife." Covered with confusion, the husband boarded his boat, and from under the lower cabin deck at the bow took out a sack. "The silver hasn't been touched," he said. "Be generous, sir, and give me back my wife." The buyer slung the silver over his back. The husband walked back beside him with the girl's clothes, but dared not board the junk till he heard his wife calling. He found her wrapped in a quilt in the middle cabin, stepped forward and gave her the clothes. When she had dressed, she kowtowed twice, then left the boat with the cuckold looking thoroughly ashamed. The buyer gave Fing 1 packet of silver containing 50 taels to thank him, and after a moment's thought, Fing accepted it. He divided it into 3 and gave it to the runners. "Yours is a hard job," he said. "Here is something for your pains." They thanked him. Soon they arrived at Hang Chow and changed boats for Tai Chow. The 5 of them approached the town together. "Word of this may have leaked out, Mr. Fing," said the runners. "If the prefect learns what we've done, how can we answer for it?" "Leave that to me," said Fing. He hired 4 chairs outside the town, let down the curtains, and made the runners and Wan go by chair while he followed on foot to Wan's house. Inside the gate were 2 wings built next to the road, and in the inner courtyard were 2 rooms partitioned into 3. As they entered, they heard crying inside the house, but soon this stopped and a meal was served. "Don't go just yet," said Fing when they had eaten. "Wait till the lamps are lit, then ask the clerk in charge of this case to come here. I know what to say to him." The runners agreed. As soon as the lamps were lit, they went secretly to the Tai Chow Yamen to find the clerk, Chow Chin. Chow was amazed to learn that the fourth Mr. Feng of Nanking was with them. "Feng is a champion of justice," he said. "How did Mr. Wan meet him?" "Well, Mr. Wan is in luck." He went with them to Wan's house, and as soon as he and Feng met, they seemed like old friends. "I ask one thing only of you, Mr. Chow," said Feng. "Make things as easy for us as you can before the prefect calls for a confession." The clerk agreed to this. The next day, Wan took a small seat and chair to the tutelary god's temple in front of the yamen. He was still wearing official dress of the 7th rank, gauze cap and boots, but inside his collar was a chain. The Tai Chao runners handed in his warrant, and Prefect Chi took his seat in court at once. The escort from Nanking presented the official reply for the prefect to endorse, and Wan was brought into the court. The prefect gave a start when he saw Wan's gauze cap and round collar, and he gave another start when he read that Wan was a secretary of the patent office. He raised his eyes to Wan, who, sure enough, had not knelt down but was standing. "When did you receive this appointment?" asked the prefect. "In the first month this year." "Why have I had no notice of it?" "It has to go from the cabinet to the ministry, and from the ministry to the provincial governor. All that takes time. Still, it should be here soon." "Well, we'll soon lose this secretaryship. I went up to Peking last year, and this year came back to Nanking. I've done nothing wrong all this time. May I ask why your honor sent runners to arrest me in a different province? I assume there must be some reason." "Because Brigadier General Miao neglected the defense of the coast, he was arrested by the governor. In his office they found a poem you had written for him, with a dedication couched in most flattering terms. You were bribed by him to write, and we know the amount of the bribe. Do you still pretend to be innocent?" "This is a libel," protested Wan. "When at home I never set eyes on Brigadier General Miao. How could I send him a poem? I have seen the poem myself. It is quite a length. It is signed with your literary name and sealed with your seal. His Excellency the Governor is inspecting the coastal regions and is putting up in our prefecture until this case is settled. How dare you deny your guilt? Although I belong to the college, I have never been able to write poems. I have never used a seal with my literary name. I have a guest staying with me, though, who last year cut several seals of different sizes for me. I left them in the library and never put them away. You must have written this poem and used my name. I beg your honor to make further investigations." "What is this man's name? Where is he now?" "His name is Feng Ming Chi. He is staying in my house." The prefect picked up a bamboo slip and ordered the same runners to fetch Feng at once for questioning. Soon the runners came back with Feng. The prefect resumed his seat in court, and the runners came up to announce, "Feng Ming Chi is here, your honor." The prefect called him forward. "Are you Feng Ming Chi? How long have you been a friend of Brigadier General Miao?" "I have never met him, your honor." Wan Li wrote a poem for him today. Today, when questioned, Wan said you had written this poem and cut the seal with his name on it as well. Why did you act in such a lawless manner? "I have never written a poem in my life, and even if I had, that's not a crime." "How dare you answer back, you scoundrel?" The prefect ordered Feng to be tortured. The runners above and below the dais raised a shout, brought in the ankle screws, and tossed them down at the entrance to the court. 2 of them threw Feng to the ground and fitted the ankle screws on him. "Put some strength into it," said the prefect. The runner holding the ropes gave a great tug. Crack! The ankle screws broke into 6 pieces. "Is this scoundrel using magic?" demanded the prefect. He ordered them to bring a new pair of screws, which were sealed with vermilion writing. He examined these and added the official seal. Then the runners started back. But before the ropes could be pulled, another crack was heard, and the ankle screws broke once more. 3 pairs of screws were brought, but all that remained of them were 18 fragments scattered all over the floor. And all Feng did was smile. He would not confess. Prefect Chi was alarmed. He left the court, sending the prisoner to Gaol, while he went by chair to the official hostel to report this to the military governor. When the governor heard what had happened, because he knew Feng's fame as a champion of the wronged, he suspected that some injustice had been done. By this time, moreover, Brigadier General Miao had died in Gaol, and the announcement of Wan's appointment to the patent office had arrived. Wan's offense was not a great one in any case, so the governor ordered the prefect to pass a lenient sentence and close the case. Then Wan and Feng were released, and the governor went back to hang Chow. Feng had dealt successfully with this dangerous charge. When the case was dismissed and Wan had seen off the runners, he went home with Feng and poured out his gratitude. "You are father and mother to me," he declared. "How shall I ever repay you?" "We are not old friends, my dear sir," said Feng with a laugh, "and I was under no obligation to you. It was merely a whim of mine to help you like this. If you really insist on thanking me, I shall think it rather bad taste. I must go to Hang Chow now to look for a friend, and I mean to set out tomorrow." In vain did Wang beg him to stay. Feng insisted on going. The next day he took his leave of Wan without taking so much as a cup of water in thanks, and set out alone for Hang Chow. But to know who Feng went to look for, you will have to read the next chapter.